standard generate in modern C++. So there's a lot of examples of C++ with generate out there, but they almost always use a static variable in the generator function. And the problem with that is that if you're using a static variable, that could have different meanings depending on which context you're calling from. In particular, if you're using some sort of a multi-threaded or vectorized context, the static variable might take on different values depending on which processor it gets called in and which thread it gets called in. So that's not really going to work. So a much better solution is available in C++14 that allows you to declare a local variable from within a lambda. First, let's include the generate utility. So the first thing I'm going to want to do is allocate a list. So let's just populate that list. I need to include the list file, header file. Just a list of ints is fine for our purposes. And let's just give it some arbitrary capacity. 10 works well. Now let's declare a lambda. And what I'm going to do is say I want to capture a variable that's not currently defined as my generator function. And let's just return that variable, but each time I return it, I'm going to modify it by incrementing it by 2. And you can see there's a little error there. I'll take care of that in a second. So now let's actually generate the sequence. And I'll just pass my lambda to the generator, and we can print out each element to show we've done the right thing. Okay, and now up to why we have a little error here. Okay, it says the expression must be a modifiable L value, meaning this thing needs to be modifiable. And so what's happening here is it's capturing this variable I, which is getting defined, but it's not mutable. So we're not going to be able to change it in the local context until we have to indicate that this is a mutable lambda. Okay, so adding that keyword should solve the problem. And let's go ahead and see if we can build it and if we get the right result. Okay. So we should be able to run that and see what happens. And you can see it prints out the first 10 elements of an even sequence. So this is better than using a static because this locally defined variable will now be changeable just in the context where it's called. So depending on the scope that you provide there, this will be an improvement over using a static because this is going to be contained in the scope where you define it. So now you don't necessarily have that global scope of the static. You can control the scope depending on where it's defined.